What Scotland might take away from its union with England is one of the most contentious parts of this entire thing. Owen Fairclough is with me now, looking at the Scotland's assets, and ultimately this will be a very costly divorce. Owen?
Phil, there's absolutely no doubt that this would hit London financially. If we take a look at a few of the assets that Scotland has, the UK government currently earns around $15 billion a year in taxes from oil and gas fields off the coast of Scotland. Now, London thinks that independent Scotland would be entitled to about 90% of those revenues. And the independence camp in Scotland say this would help them build up a huge sovereign wealth fund, the kind of fund that countries like Norway use to great effect with their oil and gas. Now, if you ever tasted a Widram, you'll know that Scottish whisky is world-renowned, and that helps bring in around $7.5 billion every year for Scotland from food and drink exports. Financial services account for around $2 billion a year as well. But that doesn't really take into account the impact of Scotland potentially changing currency, and that's absolutely crucial. Prime Minister David Cameron is very clear about what this breakup would mean for the UK currency.
If Scotland were to separate itself from the United Kingdom, then a currency union between the rest of the United Kingdom and an independent Scotland with an independent government, an independent fiscal and monetary policies, that can't work. And so the advice has been very clear that we should be clear to people in Scotland: if you leave the United Kingdom, you leave the currency union, you leave the pound.
So a very clear message from UK Prime Minister David Cameron there, and London is essentially saying to Edinburgh, if you won't share our debts, you can't have the pound. And that's been causing tremors in financial markets, with some financial companies beginning to consider moving money out of Scotland south of the border into England, where at least they know what kind of currency they're invested in the mid to long term. Now, the Scottish nationalists, they say they want to join the euro, but they've been told by Brussels they'll have to get in line behind a host of other EU candidate countries, and EU applications take years to complete. Ultimately, Scotland's share of UK GDP isn't that big. It contributes around 10%. But remember, the oil drilling technology is getting better all the time at reaching those deeper and more remote spots. And in years to come, those oil and gas fields off the coast of Scotland might just yield a nice little nest egg for an independent Scotland. Phil?
Somehow I don't think we've heard the end of all these consequences. Owen, thank you very much for the explanation.